The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. We got ourselves a cool show. Viewers and listeners, fantastic topics. Got a pretty intriguing listener question I'm eager to share with you all later in the show. And to cap it all off, the pièce de résistance, we have a fabulous guest joining us in the segment. We're going to be joined by Gregoire Jean-Salon, the Chief Operating Officer at Tucker Tooley Entertainment, the producers of the new YouTube series, Band of Strangers. This show looks really, really cool. I mean, I love like music docu-series, and this one, which is all about bringing a group of musician strangers together to make a song together, traveling the world. Really cool concept. Excited to learn more about the show and maybe glean from it some lessons that we can impart to the indie creators out there. Just a cool idea, a great guest. Excited for that. And excited to chat with our co-host this week. Producer Lauren is here. Hey, Lauren.
Hi, Ryan. You get stuck with me.
I get to be stuck with you. Let's emphasize that part. It is a thrill. I have to express my gratitude to you for putting on just a fabulous birthday party for not only my son Nathan, but all of the members in our family who are in the clown car that is the July birthdays of our family. My son Nathan was born in July, as are our brothers, Jason and Steven, our nephew Aaron, and like a bunch of aunts.
We have to shout out to them because as we record, it is their birthday today. Jason, Steven, and Aaron are celebrating two 50th birthdays and an 18th. Big milestones. Congrats to them. Congrats to our dad. He's been a father for 50 years.
Oh, and Dad's birthday's in July too. Yeah, July's a mess. I mean, I don't know what it is about like Kairallas wanting to like really get busy around October. Like that is I don't know if like, you know, the light hits everything just right in October, but like Kairallas just seem to get pretty excited about things in October, and so we have a ton of July births. I don't know how that happens, but July is a mess. It's way too many birthdays. We crammed them all together and celebrated all of them as a family in July, and producer Lauren spearheaded what was a fabulous birthday bash that my now 4-year-old Nathan still won't shut up about because he is obsessed with the giant foam machine that you had at your house. You covered the backyard in like foam how do I describe this machine? It's like a pump with a hose that like you can have a foam party like in your house as opposed to at a club, and you just filled the backyard with foam. I don't know how it works where it's just this like tiny little bucket of water
in your house, and the image of the foam party in a house just gave me like dramatic nightmares.
I mean, you could have done that, but no, it was in the backyard. But like, I still don't understand the science of how like it's this little bucket of water that you like sprinkle some powder in, and then it just pumps out like enough bubble foam to just fill a sizable backyard.
To bury some children. Like we just bury them. You know, entertainment companies and event companies that do parties, foam parties, I am fascinated by the fact that you may do them near pools, but there are very specific rules about not doing them in pools. And you think that they sound like a great idea until you watch your child get buried under, 5 feet of foam, and you realize that like people would probably drown if you covered a pool in foam. It only sounds like a good idea. In reality, it needs to remain on the grass where you can run around.
Yeah. I mean, and like if it's covering the surface of the pool, you don't know if like you're going to jump onto something that's going to hurt you. But like,
I will say artistically, the photographs that I get after the fact look like clouds in reverse. Like you have the clouds in the sky and then the clouds all over the yard. And they make very artistic photos.
I mean, you understand that when you give my 4-year-old a foam party, you are setting unreasonably high standards for how happy his childhood can be that his biological parents cannot possibly meet. I mean, do you know how hard it is to get him to get excited about like reading a Elephant and Piggy book or, just playing with a puzzle when he knows at Aunt Producer Lauren's house, there are foam parties to be had?
I remember getting a phone call from one of my sister-in-laws many years ago, and her statement was, "You've ruined my children." And I said, "What did I do?" She said, "Apparently, I can't make brownies right." She's like, "I don't know what you do. Do you have some special pan or something? Because I was told that I don't have the right pan to make brownies." And I was like, "What are you talking?" I had one of those, like, those stupid, like, divider pans that made every piece an edge or something that, you got at a drugstore or something. Yeah. I don't know. But I just think it's funny. Like, I'm supposed to be the fun one, right? Like, being the parent is hard. And I intentionally chose not to do that to myself. Instead, I wanted to be the one that they ran to and not from. And so I get to do those fun things, but I'm very amused by when the parent turns around and calls and goes, "You're ruining them."
Well, I mean, I would say just like, you're not ruining my son. He could not be happier. What you're doing is you're ruining my life
view of me.
Because, my kid thinks I suck because my house has 0 foam parties.
I don't know. Your house has some pretty cool stuff, number one. And you're the dad that brings him to me every week. I mean, like, you could be hoarding him away from me. You make that choice, and he knows that you drive like 45 minutes just to bring him to see me.
Yes, that's probably his favorite thing about me is that I bring him to you.
Yes.
He likes me because I am the means of conveyance to the thing he likes the most in his life, which is you, which is fine. I am so happy that he's having a magical childhood that is just setting standards I can't possibly meet at my house. Lauren, we got some interesting topics this week.
Okay.
I think the listener question we have is pretty good, and I think you'll have a lot to say on it, but I want to do what we in the radio business called a tease and just tease it and not bring it up yet because I want to keep people around and, maybe have a nice, coasting right into the Gregoire Gensalon interview. But I want to talk about a little bit of legal news first, and then we'll get to this really cool listener question. I promise. All right. But I wanted to do a quick update on the Live Nation lawsuit, the antitrust case. To catch up the viewers and listeners, about more than a year ago, the Department of Justice and a bunch of states sued concert promoter Live Nation for antitrust violations. And basically the argument was because Live Nation owns a bunch of venues, as well as the ticket company Ticketmaster, as well as a bunch of concert promoting organizations that work with a bunch of artists, it allows
them all to use, right?
Right. They because they basically control every aspect of the live concert experience, they're creating unfair competition because they're saying, well, artist, if you want to play at this venue, you have to work with our promoting company. Venue, if you want this artist, you have to use our ticketing platform. And so by doing that, it basically raises the price of all these things. Tickets are more expensive. The concert experience is less good because of this monopoly. And so Live Nation got sued. A few months before the jury verdict was announced in that case, the Department of Justice and a handful of the states settled early. They said, we don't want to wait till the verdict. We want to settle. And most people were of the belief that they gave the store away on the settlement, that the Department of Justice and these states settled for way less than what the case was worth. And that sort of bared itself out because the states that remained in the lawsuit and took the case all the way to verdict got a unanimous verdict. The jury in that case said, yep, this is pretty obviously a monopoly. It's illegal. And now the judge in that case is going to come down with a verdict. How much are they going to pay? And maybe could even break the company up. And it's going to be a pretty substantial payout, way more than what the Department of Justice and these states settled for. And if you're wondering why the Department of Justice and all these states settled early, one might look to the political circumstances of the thing, right? The case was originally brought by Biden's Justice Department. By the time the Biden administration became the Trump administration, a few entanglements happened. One, Live Nation donated about $500,000 to Trump's inauguration. It appointed Trump advisor Richard Grenell to Live Nation's board of directors. It hired a former press secretary of Donald Trump's as one of its lobbyists. It created a bunch of conflicts of interest. The same sort of conflicts that might cause a Trump Justice Department to settle a antitrust case with Live Nation for pennies on the dollar. And if you're like me thinking, hey, that kind of sucks, and maybe the federal government shouldn't just be allowed to do that completely undeterred, you'll be happy to know that there is something that artists can do about it. There is a law that says that before the Department of Justice can engage in a settlement like this, there is a 60-day public comment window where anybody, you, me, an artist, anybody can send a comment to the federal judge, who still has to approve this settlement, by the way,
right,
and let the justice system know why you think this sucks. And you can do that right now. It is a vehicle for you. There is a email address that I can give you. Maybe producer Lauren can put it up on the board there. Actually, I think it might be.
Yes, it's Live Nation public comment at usdoj.gov. It is tickering on the bottom. But
Perfect.
Again, that's Live Nation public comment at usdoj.gov.
And you can go to that website. You can email and say why you think that this settlement is not good, that it's giving too much away to.
Some of those reasons if you need help.
Yeah, no, if we're happy to tell you that you can look them up. You can check out our old episode where I, yelled at Gideon King for 40 minutes about why Live Nation's monopoly practices are pretty horrific and why this settlement is equally horrific. But now's the time to sound off, because if you don't think this is a fair settlement, if you think the circumstances under which it came together are at least a little suspicious, the judge still has to approve this settlement. And if there are fairness concerns, if they feel like the settlement was not an arm's length transaction, the judge can still put a stop to it. And one thing that might inspire the judge to do that is if they hear from this industry, if they hear from the artists, if they hear from the venues, if they hear from the fans that this settlement is not a fair one, that's the kind of thing that can create a little bit more justice in this space. So I encourage our music community in one voice to go to Live Nation public comment at usdoa.gov and let your voice be heard. It takes 2 minutes. It is, you don't have to write a whole dissertation unless you want to, but just let them know this isn't a lawyer's thing, right? You don't have to. No. They don't want to hear from the lawyers here. This is specifically a forum to hear from the people who are actually being affected by what Live Nation is doing.
If you've ever bought a ticket to a concert,
yeah,
you are affected. Yeah.
Or if you couldn't buy a ticket to a concert because it costs so much, or because they let all the bots buy up the tickets and then triple the price on you, this is where you let your voice be heard. And I can't tell you, if you want to know how bad this settlement was, Hypebot did a review of this where they saw that if you kind of parse out the settlement amount by state, it was about $18 million per state, which is about what Live Nation earns as a company every 6 hours.
Yeah.
So
and it has no kind of changing of their infrastructure. It has no kind of implications for things to be different going forward. It's kind of like a slap on the wrist, pay a fine that maybe they don't want to have to pay the fine, but like they can, it's not going to hurt their business practice and it's not going to change anything going forward. So, if nothing else, if you have the time to write to your representative or write to the US DOJ and say, we need to have change that actually changes things.
This is a marvelous point, producer Lauren, because even though it is true that the money being settled for by that DOJ settlement is meager, but it is also true that no matter how high you make that financial penalty, no matter how many zeros you stick on it, there is a very strong vocal chorus in this industry, of which you and I are a part, that says that no amount of money actually fixes this problem. The only thing that would actually fix the problem is what you should be doing with monopolies, which is breaking them up, is breaking up Live Nation from Ticketmaster, making these two companies not be tied together. And that, by the way, is still an option, right? The judge who is reviewing this case for the folks who did take it to verdict is in the verdict phase right now, has to decide what the penalty is. And the death penalty, so to speak, of breaking up Live Nation and Ticketmaster is still very much on the table.
Okay, they're saying death penalty, but honestly, like, is that a death penalty? Isn't it just like both companies get to still, like, both companies? You now have two companies that still exist. Yeah. Both can still have money. People can still be employed. People can still have their jobs. Like, things can still move forward. We just need to say it's a conflict of interest for you to be doing both parts. It's time to separate and like do separate things. Like, we're not saying you need to go away and somebody else is going to come in and take over your industry, or you've got to fire all your employees. We're taking you out of business. Like, I don't understand why it's this big evil. That's I'm being melodramatic. And when I say death, I'm saying death to this monopoly, right? Right. Yeah.
We want a actual functioning market, a competitive marketplace that can make
brown paper
tickets more affordable,
whatever,
can allow artists a greater range of venues, can create a better experience for fans, can get the bots out of concerts. All of these things.
Are they to blame for the World Cup tickets doing redunculous things too? Because like I
don't know if those are Live Nation venues.
I don't know what happened there, but that was that same kind of a problem where you're like the actual ticket price isn't the ticket price of any tickets anymore. I'm very confused.
I mean, I'm happy to blame Live Nation. I mean,
it was live. It was in this nation, so
it rained while I was trying to get the garbage cans out to the sidewalk today. I'll blame Live Nation for that.
Nation for that too. Take them down. Take them down.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Before we bring in our guest, wanted to give us a listener question here. It is a good one here. I'm going to read it right from the question. Listener writes in, I have listened to your podcast for a few years now. I consider myself an indie creator. For the past couple years, I have tried to really make a go at being full-time. I am proud of the videos and sketches I have made in that time and the people I have met during this time. But I feel like I am reaching the point where I need to accept the fact that I will not be able to support myself without a non-creator job. It's just not working out. I am fortunate that I have job opportunities outside of entertainment that I could support myself with, but I cannot help but feel a sense of loss to leave all this behind. How do I get past this feeling? Is there still hope for me to feel fulfilled? I mean, I think we should focus on.
There's so many personal questions, but yeah,
there is. But and it's a powerful, stirring question. There's a lot to chew on there. Love to get your insight on producer Lauren, but I think we need to focus on what is obviously the most important part of this listener question, which is that this person's been listening to our podcast for a long time. We're going
to take it. Yeah.
The listener question should have just ended right there. It would have been absolutely perfect. But after that really glowing endorsement, they said some stuff about not being able to be a full-time creator anymore and coping and making peace with that. I guess we have to talk about that too. I got a lot of thoughts on this, producer Lauren. I've talked around some of these topics before. I want to give you the opportunity to speak on this, but I'll at least get the ball rolling with just a couple thoughts, including one that I tell creators all the time. In my entertainment law practice, I represent a lot of full-time creators, people who make art for a living. That is how they pay their rent, pay their mortgage, pay their groceries. And that's one subset of my client base in the entertainment industry. But the other subset are people you might not think of. They are people who create stuff part-time, but their actual day jobs are things like doctors, lawyers, engineers, teachers, college professors. That's how they make their income. And then they have this side gig where they make art. Maybe they make money from it. Maybe they don't. Some years they might make some money and some years they might not make as much, but they don't work in this entertainment industry to pay the rent. It is very much a side gig, and they hire my legal services to help their entertainment stuff get out into the world. Now, by and large, if I were to take a poll of both of those populations of my client base, the full-timers and the part-timers, I would say on average, the part-timers are happier. Now, there are differences, right? Like I could certainly point out an anecdotal example of a full-timer who is deliriously happy and a part-timer who's not happy at all, but on average, the part-timers are happier. And so to this letter writer who thinks that like there is no path to happiness for me unless I'm creating full-time, that is not the experience of my client base. And I think the reason why on average the full-time entertainers are not as happy is I think there's something to be said for if the thing that you love the most in the world, if the thing that is your biggest passion is the thing that you have to do to survive, is the thing that you have to do well to pay your rent, that can have a tendency to suck away your joy and passion for that thing. Whereas if your passion is something that you do on the side while you do some other career that makes you money and funds this entertainment passion of yours, it takes the pressure off. You know, the thing that you love the most in the world isn't the thing you have to do to survive. And so you might wind up enjoying it more. And so it's possible to that question asker that if they can find a non-entertainment gig that gives them a stable income, it doesn't have to be the thing they love the most in the world, but if they can at least tolerate that job and then use that money and use that, you know, flexibility that non-entertainment job gives you to fund your entertainment career, not only is there no shame in that, not only should you not feel bad about that, and not only, you know, does that mean you won't create great art, because many of my part-time clients will create great art under that system, but don't think for a second that you will be necessarily less happy from that path, because I have plenty of examples in my own client base where that's not the case.
Yes. The first thing that comes to my mind now actually was advice given to me by a substitute teacher in high school who said, if you could do anything else and be happy, do it. And I'm thinking this is awful advice, right? Because I want to be a performer and I've been a performer and there's something to be said for if you can do anything else and be happy, do it. That doesn't
and anything else, like anything else other than making art.
This was a theater teacher.
Okay.
Who told me this? Because there is, like you said, when your fun becomes work, it feels like work sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you spend lots of money on your art and your art is your income, you see yourself doing your profit and loss. Like, did it make as much as it spent? Versus if it becomes the thing that you do with your money, I made money and then I spent it on my art. You find yourself passion projecting your art like you would your boat. Like you've got your fun boat, you're going out on weekends. It's what you do with your passion. And sometimes the art that is created from that comes from a different place. And when you stop doing the other thing is when you can't do anything else and be happy. If the work you're doing is getting in the way, if you need to be doing this thing and you're passionately doing this thing and doing everything else makes you miserable, that's when that's the only thing you do. That is your full time. But if you can do anything else and have happiness, do that something else. It rounds you more. It gives you place to find more content. It connects you to the outside world outside of artists. It gives you perspective that you can't get kind of when you're tunnel visioned into the creatives world, because creatives think very differently. And forcing yourself to work with people who aren't creatives is an interest. It's not something that's easy for creatives, but it's something valuable. A good friend of mine, who was my neighbor, has a company that makes badges, ID badges and things like that, lanyards, whatever, basic manufacturing stuff. But he found something that he could do, and all of that goes into making one of the coolest music recording studios I had ever seen. And he goes in there and he records all of his own music. And now in his house, he's got his grand piano, and he converted this thing, and he makes wonderful music every day because he found something that could bring in money that he could throw into his music. It's like fundraising. He doesn't think of it as, this is the thing that I have to do, and this is the work that I have to do, my 9 to 5 and my this and my that. It was, here's how I make money to do what I really want to do. Mm-hmm. And you do it. And so if you can find that joy, bring it to your art. And when you can't do anything else and be happy, then do what makes you happy. And,
I like your badge guy example, because I think he also is emblematic of a similar lesson that I give to artists who are going through what the letter writer is going through, which is, if the goal is to achieve the highest possible creative heights that you can, to do the best to whatever your goals are, to achieve the most creative goals. Ironically, sometimes you can get further as a creator by not doing it full time, by doing something else that funds your creative career, than by doing it full time, right? I'm guessing if your badge guy tried to be a full-time creator and tried to fund his career solely with his art, he would not achieve as much or do as much than if he worked in his day job, made a lot of money that could fund his career, and also make like connections in the industry that he could use for his career. Right. And so if this letter writer has job opportunities that can give him, generate him a decent amount of money, maybe give him some business connections, he might be able to indirectly achieve more as an artist than by trying to just do art full time. The other example I like to give is, my largest client outside of the entertainment industry is, wildly successful, CEO, property developer, things like that. And he also loves making movies. Like, he has a passion for producing films. And when he was young, he could have said, okay, I love making movies, I love producing films, so I'm going to become a full-time film producer. I'm going to go to film school, and I'm going to try to get like an internship at a studio and grind my way up the ladder, like getting coffee for, some jerk Hollywood industry suit or something. But instead he said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go into real estate, which is not something I love. It's not my passion like movies are, but I'm good at it and I like it and I can make a lot of money doing it. And that's what he did. He became very, very good at real estate and a developer, and he's done all these different businesses since. And what he realized as he was sort of getting his way to the very top of his field was the elites tend to hang out with other elites, regardless of industry, right? All the elites meet together. And so by virtue of being the king of his industry, he got to get connected to the kings of other industries, such as entertainment. And he was rubbing elbows with like the big names in movies and music. And by being in those rooms, he got the opportunity to produce movies. And so he accomplished way more as a movie producer and as a art person by not directly pursuing the entertainment industry than if he were to pursue that route directly. Yeah. And so I think there's something to be said for like, no, you are not giving up on your dream as an entertainer by not doing it full time. You might actually find a clearer path to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, I mean, and I guess I will say, like, to the letter writer, if they are really feeling like a sense of loss, or some kind of mourning of, this life that they feel like they're leaving behind, like, I mean, do seek, somebody to talk to, whether it's a friend or professional advice or something like that. I am not discounting the loss that this person is feeling. Like you and I can sit here for, 20 minutes and talk about, there's better days ahead and don't worry, you're not losing anything, but it still sucks in the moment.
It sucks if it hurts. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if it hurts, talk to somebody and, but also understand that once you're done talking to somebody and you do feel better, there are better days ahead. And producer Lauren and I are absolutely right.
Right. No matter what path you go on, you can keep creating. You are not, whether you're full-time or you're part-time, you are still a creator. You are not somebody who is not creating anymore. That's a part of who you are. So don't fear losing that if you decide to do another job for however long you decide to do another job.
And let me just close by remarking on technology's role in all of this. Because you could certainly talk to people who believe that because of advances in technology, it has become perhaps more difficult than ever to be a successful full-time creator because the market is so saturated now. Yeah. And now we have things like AI, which, some are arguing might be threatening the livelihood of working artists. And we're all trying to reckon with that. And maybe that's true. I mean, I could make the argument the opposite way, that technology is just as good. But here's one thing that I think isn't a debate. Technology, even if it has made it harder to become successful full-time creator, it has made it easier than ever to be a successful part-time creator.
Yes.
20 years ago or 30 years ago, the idea of being able to make a movie, like, a home movie by yourself and immediately have a worldwide audience for that movie on a platform like YouTube was inconceivable. Yeah. The idea 30 years ago of you being able to make an album and have anybody in the world be able to hear that album is inconceivable. If you and your friends wanted to make sketch comedy, the only place where that sketch comedy would have been seen 30 years ago is some local performance space in your hometown, and nobody outside of it would know who you are. If you were trying to make it as a sketch comedian, your only hope was if you could move to LA and try to get a gig in like Second City or Groundlings or Acme or something like that, Upright Citizens, and try to work your way up the ladder. And it was really hard. Now, if you're good at sketch comedy, you can make YouTube videos with your friends. They can become popular and you can become recognized. So all of those are paths where it is more possible than ever to be a successful part-time creator, even if it might be still challenging to be a successful full-time creator. And so be glad that you live in this time where this path is more possible for you, because it wouldn't have been 30 years ago.
Very true.
All right. Let us take a break. Speaking of awesome new media innovations that we now have, let's take a break and we're going to talk with our guest about a pretty cool example of just that. Gregoire Jean Salon is going to be joining us to talk about the new YouTube series, Band of Strangers. Check that out. Don't go anywhere. Keep checking out Break the Business. Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan A. Kairalla, PA. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to Break the Business, you delightful humans. Thank you for checking us out wherever you're checking us out. There are way too many places for you to be checking us out. I'm glad you found at least one of them, whether it is our all major podcast platforms, whether it's volume.com, our best friend in the live streaming world, whether it's SiriusXM 145 or YouTube or Twitch, wherever you're checking out this program. I'm just so glad you are. Thank you so much. Kisses. Mwah, mwah, mwah. If you want to spread the word, give us a little word of mouth, tell your friends about the show, leave us a nice review. All of that stuff would be just most appreciated for us to grow our little community and just get us more cool listener questions like that. I encourage people, go to breakthebusiness@gmail.com if you have a question you want us to answer on the show. We love answering listener questions. I tend to think, and you can feel free to disagree with me on this, Producer Lauren, I think the listener questions produce the best content. I'm not saying we shouldn't do news stories, because they're great and it's important to keep the audience informed. But there's only so much you want to hear about me talking about Department of Justice settlements. And I think there's a lot more humanity in actually taking questions from our amazing audience.
Well, I mean, that's what we're here for, right? We're trying to help artists and creators. And if they have questions, I hope they are willing to ask us, and I hope that we can help. Otherwise, we're just shooting out there what we think you want help with. If you actually want help with something specific, let us know. That's what we're here for.
Well, we got lots of questions for our guest this week. Let's go ahead and bring him in. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Tucker Tooley Entertainment. The company's latest project is Band of Strangers, a new YouTube series that drops into a city, brings together musicians who've never met, and has them build an original song from scratch, turning each city's streets, stories, and people into part of the music. You can find the series on YouTube at Band of Strangers. We are happy to welcome Gregoire Jean-Salon onto Break the Business. Hi, Gregoire.
Hi, Ryan. Hi, Lauren.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to be talking with you. Your hair is magnificent. I am jealous. Before we dive into the series, I want to talk a little bit about you because your backstory is pretty interesting. You were trained as an engineer and you moved into film finance and distribution. You worked on films like Arrival and The Founder, two of my favorite movies, by the way. And now you're launching the Band of Strangers with Tucker Tooley Entertainment. How does an engineer converted to studio finance guy end up working on a music series? That's got to be quite a journey.
Oh, I love that question. I mean, I think it's already resonating with, I think, what Lauren was saying earlier, like do what you love. I think it just early 20s, I was in management consulting, fresh grad from engineering studies, and probably 3 years into it, I understood it was not for me. I just wasn't inspired. I would spend 5 days a week traveling around Europe on projects that were challenging intellectually, but the people I was spending the time with, as soon as we'd have breaks, I couldn't connect. So deep dive inside and probably anticipated my midlife crisis at the age of 22. And I realized, in fact, I love the arts. I think one blessing I had in my life is that my parents are both psychiatrists, but they also collect contemporary art. And I've been raised with artists, galleries, curators as soon as when I was little, and spent a lot of time in museum, which we try to do with my wife or with our kids. And it caught up with me. So I chose the first career path without really thinking too far, like where it would lead me. But once I started and I realized the reality, then I was confronted with okay, how do I want to spend my time every day? And it hit me that I wanted to spend time with artists, people who are creative, inspiring, passionate. And that's when it hit me that I love movies, just like you do. I can see you're a big film buff, and that feels good already. Feel like home right now. So, but yes, once I made that realization, it was like, how do I get into that industry? Because I didn't know anyone, zero. It was all doctors around me, dentists in the south of France. And a lot of people told me, because the last year of my engineering studies, I studied in Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm a Badger. I'd be the only French person you'll ever meet that is a Badger. And at least in the entertainment industry.
What a wild backstory so far. And I mean, it makes sense that you work in film after, getting to go to college in that entertainment industry hotbed of Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So there's such a thing as Hollywood Badgers. It's crazy, but when I started industry and did my internships, I met a group of former Madison, Wisconsin students who built a group. It kind of dissolved since, but like 20 years ago, it was pretty alive. And I can tell you, I was the only foreigner in that group. So it's great. That's where it's so. But again, like, you do what you love. Like, it's it's been 20 years that I've not deviated from like taking the time to know what make me tick, and now I just kept increasing with time. So we'll talk about that.
So what is the short version for how you get from consulting into Hollywood? Because like, obviously you're working in the business now, but it's not clear to me how you got there from your prior field. So tell us a little bit about that, and tell us, like, does your consulting background, does that expertise, did that help you in any way with the work you're doing now?
Yeah, certainly. In fact, I think that's one of the things I try to tell whoever coming to the industry is figure out your strengths, double down on that, because that's where most likely people come to you for that specific skill, that specific set of experience or relationships you have. So in my case, as you say, like, I came having spent time engineering, consulting, and very analytical. And once I knew, okay, this is what I want to do is producing. Producing is kind of like a three-legged stool where you need to have access to basically capital, financing, then distribution to get your stuff seen, and access to talent. Arguably, I think that was like the lessons I would get like at the UCLA business school at the time. But like, I think now is also access to source material or IP, but to make it like a really stable chair, if you like. But what I figured is like, okay, what's my port of entry? Well, anything with analytical background, so distribution was very heavily relying, especially when I started, was the theatrical business was flourishing. Whoever was comfortable, and not even only comfortable, but like actually enjoys looking at numbers, the trends, the box office, the comparables, different markets, it becomes a skill. So something that's valuable in the industry. And that's when I figured that out, I was like, okay, I'm going to double down on that, and started in the business through the distribution angle. And then I made my way to the financing so basically I started Lionsgate after basically whoring as an intern on many different studios during the studies. And, again, you go from one place to another. My ethos was, if you start over and you're gonna work for free pretty much at the beginning, work for the best. And that's where basically research who are the best in the field, study them, observe them, and then once you understand the ecosystem, try to work for them. And eventually you work with them, and then one day maybe you'll hire. But like, it's I think has driven everything I've been doing so far. And so I was very inspired. Basically, as a producer, you're like, what are the movies I love? Okay, so I start to see a trend as like, this producer has done 2 or 3 of the movies I love. I got to work for that person. So there's 2 people who were my mentors early in my career. Steve Golin, who was the founder of a company called Anonymous Content, and that's kind of like, it was the new Hollywood at the time. He did Babel, Eternal Sunshine, A Restless Mind, Being John Malkovich, The Game, Sleepers. I mean, all these wonderful movies. And now it's obviously a powerhouse producer. Since then, he did The Revenant and all that. And then the second producer I got a chance to work for was like the older traditional Hollywood. It was the producer of the Coppola family, Fred Roos, who's unfortunately both of them are deceased right now. So, message to them where they are. But clearly, the idea was like, if you spend enough time with them and basically bring whatever skills you have at the beginning, and hopefully they grow, you'll grow with them. So that's, I think, like, it was a step by step, try to understand where you're going to bring the most value, and then obviously keep like building blocks as you go.
And it brings us to where we are now with your latest project, Band of Strangers. Let's get into this. Can you walk our viewers and listeners through the general premise of Band of Strangers, the creative prompt, the strangers, and how you sort of make the city that you're in part of the song?
Yes. So a little bit of genesis, like there are two great guys, music video directors called Jimmy Blonyards and Billy Ferguson, who did a awesome feature doc called Unknown Tour that we discovered in 2019. Basically, they had equipped a bus with a recording studio, and they were going all around America, and they would stop by like towns, cities like Memphis and Atlanta, New Orleans, and find artists where they were, street corners, dive bars, gospel church, and they basically would invite those strangers, I guess, or artists that were there, locals, to sometimes come on the bus and say, "Hey, let's try to record a song together." And some would hop on the bus, go to the different separate town again, and keep going. But like at the end of their tour, they had recorded a full album, and we thought like, what a great idea. It was obviously a completely self-financed type of doc, some flaws and everything, but like the idea was beautiful. And then it was 2019. We approached them and said like, we think there's a great show that could be on the other side of the spectrum, that like let's say AGT, The Voice, where there's prize money competition shows with auditions. We will find the people where they are and we'll do a collaboration show. No prize money. We just discover. It's about like really talent discovery and collaboration. And they obviously love the idea, but like, and in fact, they were like, we were hoping that by doing something like this, somebody would see us and want to go on a bigger journey. And so when we started to basically develop this as what would have been an unscripted television show, standard classic on some channel, 2020 happened. No artists to be found on the streets. We put it a bit on the back burner. And
Sure.
we were like, let's revisit that later. It took us a few years to basically get back our film business on orbit. But like, let's say early 2023, we start to focus on that. I'm like, more than ever, people want to see authentic content like this, like a series like where they see people where they are. And if anything, by the way, that in the doc, and it's also what we try to show, is that it's kind of a show about like defining what is success. America's Got Talent is going to have a very clear answer. It's basically your $1 million prize and a show on Vegas. But like when you meet the people in the streets and anywhere in America, they would tell you a different story. They're very happy if they just live off basically their art and perform where they are, and they didn't have to sacrifice going away from their families. They see their friends every day. That's all they care about. If they can just live out their art like that. And so that's very refreshing. And I think a really great message to hear today, especially in the term of optimization and AI and like performance, where you see people who can have a pretty, tranquil life, but still fulfilling artistically. So we definitely felt like, okay, we have to go for it. And I think the tipping point in like why it became what it is now is late 2023. I would go to some conferences, one especially called Content London in London in December, which is a really good conference where they give like a bit of like the forecast of where the industry is going. And you ingest that right before the end of the year. You get your Christmas and you come back January super energized. And that's what happened. It was clearly saying YouTube is going to dominate everything. And at that point, I was like, okay, why would we wait any longer and try to convince some kind of network executive, right, somewhere to say we want to do a collaboration show when in fact we had some financial capacity, we have some capital to deploy in some projects, and we could have instant distribution with YouTube. So we came to the conclusion like we should just go directly there. And once we made the decision, which is obviously at the time, even in 24, it felt like early because I think really the industry started to catch up in the last 6-9 months, especially the backrooms and obsession. Like now, like obviously is a big wake up call, but we started to commit to that plan. But like really thinking, what's the business model? Where can it go down the road? And it's obviously not a model where you're going to generate revenue right away. You just have to stick to the plan, right? and release episode after episode, and build the audience. But like the first step we knew was, let's make sure we execute it right first from the beginning.
Well, let me talk to you about the execution of this, because if somebody was explaining this premise to me in the abstract, my first thought would be there's a lot of creative risk in what you're trying to do here.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of taking complete strangers, totally different backgrounds, putting them together, putting them on camera and giving them a deadline and saying, make a song. It is hard enough to make a good song with people who've known each other for 20 years, under the best of circumstances, not with a camera in their face. Like, there are so many ways I could see the execution of this, as you said, completely falling apart. And yet it works. And how I guess is my question. Like, why does this format work when it seems like it shouldn't?
Yeah. No, I'm glad, and thank you. And I know I digressed a bit on the previous question because I didn't explain what is exactly the concept as it stands now that we made it a YouTube series. We figured like we want every episode to document the song creation process. It's interesting for anybody in industry when you start or later. It's always capturing this genie in a bottle. If you can get that in an episode, that's exactly what we're going for. And so, but the constraint, as you said, is like it has to be done by people who don't know each other. We're not going to an existing band and they just flesh out the whole song, because there would be maybe a part of like, okay, we repeat what we know. What we wanted to capture this kind of mix of culture, communities, and of course we're very much inspired. It was already in the doc, but like I mentioned, but like Anthony Bourdain, Part Unknown, discovering travel locations through the prism of music instead of food, as he was doing, was very exciting to us. So we always felt like, let's have 2 to 3 artists from different side of town. And obviously the objective of the series is to do, if everything grows, is like we're going to go on a road exactly as they did at the time, where we do an episode per city. But at first we figured that let's start with LA because we know it well. We're going to also manage the cost so we can last longer. It's all about runway in this economy, in the creator economy. But yes, to answer your question, like how can you control the parameters in a way, because you're not going to control the output. Think like one, I will give a lot of credits to basically again Jimmy and Billy that I talked about, because they have an incredible ear. They know how to find because obviously there's still like a little bit of selection process at first. There's been some moments, probably if you've seen every episode, there's this episode we did on Venice. Can we assemble a band of strangers from the boardwalk? And we had like only so much time. The next episode we have is in Bombay Beach. It's like over a weekend. Actually, it's even more complicated because it's literally find the artists where they are and create a song during the. So that was like really challenging. But then there's like the AI versus human episode that we did, where we basically invited a producer to bring artists that didn't know each other, but they created the song together. That's the only episode so far where they actually did it together, because most of our episodes it's disjointed. And I think there's that is like already knowing that like you lay out the first good track melody or lyrics with someone who has already some talent in songwriting, and having discussed a bit the theme of where we're going. That's obviously the foundation, and there's only so far you're going to go. If the foundation are not very good, the output might not be very good. But already having that, but then picking right who can elevate this. Usually the second layer is kind of rhythmic. It could be drums, percussions, and the third is you elevate it with other vocals on other instruments that is different, and also like a genre that feels a little different. We did a mariachi. This is hip hop also, because it was our very first episode that we shot, by the way, because we were like, if it's Parts Unknown and we have to explain LA, we have to explain the origins of LA. It's a Mexican city in the first place, the heritage. So we started with can we get a mariachi band downtown in the Pueblo, and they laid the first track, and then we went to Leimert Park in basically where hip hop artists freestyle, and it's in like black neighborhood, Crenshaw, and very talented artists, but like most of them couldn't crack that rhythm until one is called Slim Jeff figured the rhythm and managed to verse on it. So all these experiments are
That's
great,
cool.
but it's true like you cannot really completely control the output except if you have a good ear at first. Then the second part, I think, that is a connecting tissue, and we learn that as we go. It's so different than like anything scripted we've done before, and even like some of our unscripted projects is like we have a host, and we have two. Actually, we have two hosts. Sorry, we have one called Tolliver, who he's just this guy, natural. He's a natural. He fills the room wherever he goes. He's super tall, but like he's also a funk singer. But like in the first place, he was a journalist, music critic. So he can speak music, and I think a lot of it comes from like the quality of the interviews, being able to dig the personal side, and I think it will bring this kind of authenticity from the artist to be like, oh, I'm in that zone. So I think there's a bit of a guru element here, like to kind of create the elements. Obviously, all inspired by Rick Rubin. And how he's doing that with top artists, but like at a smaller scale, that's exactly what you try to do. And then and Tyler Boudreau is our second host. She's a super talented DJ. She's a resident DJ in at probably the coolest radio in LA called KCRW. And same thing, she has a very eclectic taste, so she comes from a different filter than Tolliver, but like she also can speak music at a very, very different wide range of music genres.
I mean, it is a cool premise for a show, and you have a lot of the right ingredients for this to come together. And it's really just the beginning. I know you have ambitions for more cities and expanding on this concept, and I think there's a lot to work with here, which is exciting. I love the idea of a music reality show being based on collaboration as opposed to competition. I think that's something that I wish we would see more from music reality shows, kind of distance ourselves from like the American Idol, America's Got Talent model. This is cool. Our guest has been Gregoire Jean Salon. Check out Band of Strangers on YouTube. It's a cool concept. We want to see it grow. Before we let you go, sir, we got one last question for you. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think I hinted at that, but like I think again, choosing who you're going to work for, and study them, whoever is your inspiration. Basically, quality will bring quality in your life, right? So spend the time at first to really learn the ropes from the people who do it the best. Try not to focus right away on the monetary, even of course it will be needed and to cover your base, but like that's what's going to pay dividends in your life in so many ways, creatively on human front. Like you'll feel more fulfilled. So to me, it's just always try for quality over quantity.
Absolutely. Marvelous. Thank you very much, sir. Our thanks to Gregoire Jean Salon and producer Lauren. Our thanks to all of you viewers and listeners for checking out Break the Business. We'll see you next week.